So next up, and our final talk before we go to break, and Cat's Couch. Going to have our Attack for Industrial Control Systems lead, just Alexander, give you our first attack update of the day on Attack for ICS. Big green button.
My name is Otis Alexander. I've worked at MITRE since 2014. I've been really lucky to focus on industrial control system security, cyber physical security the whole time. I feel like the area is really important. I'm passionate about it. I think it's important to all of us as well. So I'm the co-founder and lead of Attack for ICS, and I'll be giving a little update about what we've done since release and recently, but also what's in the pipeline, what's to come, what can you expect from Attack for ICS. So just as background for people who aren't familiar with Attack for ICS or Attack for Industrial Control Systems, we released it in January 2020, right before chaos ensued in the world. So, I like to say that it's really nice to see all your guys' faces because I've been speaking to screens for a long time. So it's nice to be here with all of you guys. What we focus on with Attack for ICS is really impacts to industrial control systems and what adversaries are doing to impact these systems. So industrial control systems can be found in all kinds of critical infrastructure. It could be energy, whether it's generation, transmission, distribution, manufacturing, water, wastewater treatment. Those are all in critical infrastructure and things that we focus on. And in terms of impacts, it's not just the loss of availability to these systems. It's not just monetary impacts to the business. It's really what happens to human life, how it affects us, how it affects the environment. So in this room, how many people were affected by the Colonial Pipeline incident? Anybody? Not many people from Virginia area here. So, a lot of people experience long lines. They experienced seeing people panic buying gas. They also experienced gas stations that were just out of service completely. So that really teaches us something about this attack. It was an indirect impact to the system. And, really, when we think about it, how many people really understand the infrastructure that brings us some of our most basic services? How many of us really understand it at a granular level? Not many people. So let's switch this to the adversary. Do you think they understood the underlying system and the impacts, the dependencies between the systems that they were affecting? Do you think that they understood the incident response plans for Colonial Pipeline? I see some head shaking. No, I agree with that. I think that Colonial checked boxes for them. It was a well-known company. It had the money. They had access to it, and they knew that they would pay out. So some of these things may have been just indirect consequences of this attack. Who knows? What I do know is that there's a growing trend of ransomware impacting ICS operations and likewise commodity malware. And that's something that we've had a real focus on in Attack for ICS. It's a big trend right now. So how many of you guys have a backup plan if you don't trust your water coming out your tap? You have a backup plan, you got filters, creek. What about if there's no water coming out? So that's kind of the risks that were brought to light with the Oldsmar incident, risk to water and wastewater systems. And, this is preventable. It's unsecure connection for remote access. Remote access is used ubiquitous throughout these industries to manage remote systems. But this one was unsecure, and it allowed an adversary to get in and change particular parameters in the system. So there's a huge focus here on importance of safety, resilience. Can systems step in and stop some of these parameters from going down and propagating through the system? Also, kudos to the operator. He was looking at the system, he saw something wrong, and he changed the thing back to prevent something from happening bad. So these are the type of incidents that we look at. And I just brought up some ones that are recent that have affected US because I think they all resonate with us. So since the last time we talked, I don't know when it's been, if it's been since release or ATT&CKcon, uh, another ATT&CKcon, we've had a lot of updates to attack for ICS, such as technique updates. Of course, you know, there's different things happening in the world, across the world. We keep track of those. But also something I'm excited about is mitigation objects that we've mapped to each technique. So these really talk about how you can prevent or slow down some things or risks that may affect the system. We've also mapped these mitigation objects to security controls in NIST 853 and the international standard IEC 62443, which is well known in the industrial control system community. So basically what this helps us to see is how security controls can prevent certain techniques from being executed. Another important thing is the attack for ICS sticks bundle. This has been crucial for integration purposes. It allows us to integrate with all the services that are available in the attack ecosystem, which has been very beneficial, especially tools like Attack Navigator. And last, we mapped specific ICS attacks that were relevant to enterprise attack so that you get the holistic view of the attacker lifecycle as they move through enterprise systems or traditional IT systems to either target ICS or to impact ICS. So this is kind of bittersweet for me, but we have something coming in April. We're going to transition away from the wiki site. I'm sure some of the people in the community are really happy about this. It's bittersweet to me because this is kind of our experimentation grounds. It's allowed us to mature. It allowed us to experiment with different use cases and see what worked. But I'm very happy that we're moving to attack.miter.org. Get everything in the same domain. The users in the community can take advantage of all the different features that are provided, and you get a holistic view of all the technology domains. So this is a really good thing. So what's in the horizon? What's in our pipeline? What are we doing in the background? What can you expect in the future? Well, first, we want to do an asset revamp based on ICS verticals. So what we hear from a lot of people is, what about attack for X? I got the best idea, right? So attack for renewable, attack for transportation, attack for maritime, right? This is an important question, right? Because there are threats to these different verticals, but a lot of times we don't have the incident data really to back something like that up, nor do I think that is what some of the people in attack want to do. But if you look under the hood on some of these attacks or some of these verticals, the assets are similar to what we already have in ICS. They may be named a different thing, but essentially it's the same asset with the same functionality. So we really want to tease that out. So our question to the community is, what do you call your cyber assets in your vertical? Let us know, because that'll help us be able to map two techniques that are relevant and give you the case to show that these techniques are relevant to your environment too. And another thing I'm excited about is ICS detections. So that's one thing that's missing right now. And we plan to work on detection strategies and adding them to each technique. And last August, we released our results from the first round of attack ingenuity or MITRE ingenuity attack evaluations for ICS. And we focused on the Trident malware attack against a petrochemical company in Saudi Arabia. And we had 5 vendors that participated, and we got to see how they detect these techniques being emulated. And we also saw what detection context they gave. So this was very important and insightful for us. Also, we got to see a diverse set of data sources that could be potentially used to detect some of these attacks. So data sources from ICS applications and operational databases. So we're going to use the insights from this plus the insights from us working in the lab and any contributions to provide detections for each technique. By the way, thank you to Armis, Clarity, Dragos, III, and Microsoft for really participating in this during COVID. I know it was hard. So last, we want to release a blog series on technique sequences. So we've had some interesting interpretations of techniques in attack for ICS, and I'm not going to go into the reasons for that. But what we think is we can create more communication around what techniques mean, how they fit together, where the sequences, preconditions, post conditions for various use cases in ICS. And we think that would be important. So we really want to release this blog post series to get some talk around this subject area. So always feel free to reach out, feedback, comments, especially the things that we're mentioning on the horizon. We're always looking for feedback here to incorporate it. Thank you. Time for questions.
Excellent presentation. And even while listening to you speak, I was looking around the room, and I see power, I see water, I see HVAC, and I'm like, just like the insider thread, it's starting to resonate, and really, this problem starting to ferment is something that really needs to be at the top of our mind. So thank you for all the work you've done and for your team. We had a great question online, but I wanted to, you might hear that at the couch. So I wanted to see if anyone from the audience had anything up front.
In the mapping to 853 and 6443, was there consideration for 882, the overlay for 53?
There was. The background for that is 53. Everything that they reference in there is. So I actually, Adam Hahn, which is one of the authors for 882, kind of headed up that. So he has some background on how they mapped everything.
Question.
There's some rather creative progress of ICS. I'm wondering if you have data or anecdotes of how well the
So repeating for the live audience, sorry about the last one. Basically, the question was: there's been some, different opinions about, the progress of ICS security and what's happening in the space. What have you seen in terms of adoption of attack and kind of that maturity model of expertise, expanding, especially the bridge of OT experts and IT experts and cyber, and really mushing that together?
All right, yeah, that's a lot. I don't have all the visibility, but I can point to a couple of things. So one is I work with a lot of utilities, right? So I have other sponsor engagements that I have to fulfill, and you see them using it or pointing to it. So that's one thing. I always love when the asset owner and operator is using or referencing attack, just period. The second thing is I'm seeing more and more mappings within security tools, which I think is great. So, kudos to the security vendors for mapping to their detections, giving that extra context to the user to understand really adversary behavior and what's being detected. So I think that's one of the biggest things that we can do for adoption is getting into security tools.
Final question, short and sweet. My favorite for all the attack presenters. What can we do for you? Quick call for action for the community.
Right. I know that ICS isn't everybody's technology domain. They don't have the expertise there. But for the ones that do, help contribute, give us feedback on what we're doing right, what we need to improve on. And for the people who are interested, move over, get more knowledge about it and help contribute as well.